Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Baigong Pipes, ancient iron pipes in a Chinese mountain that predate China. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. On the shores of Toson Lake in the remote Qinghai Province of China, 3 triangular cave openings lead into a mountain called Baigong. Inside and around those caves, iron pipes of varying sizes run from the rock face down into the lake. Some are as thin as a toothpick, some are 40 centimeters across, some have partially fused into the surrounding rock. In 2002, a team from the Geology and Mineral Resources Research Institute in Beijing went to investigate. They found no explanation. The Qinghai Times reported the story under the headline UFO Pipes, and the story spread globally. Local legend had long held that the structures were left by extraterrestrials. Chinese geologists had a different hypothesis, one that was more prosaic but no less strange. In a region with no known ancient civilization, no associated settlement, no tools, and no artifacts of any kind, what built the Baigong Pipes? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Out-of-place artifacts, objects found in geological or archaeological contexts that predate their supposed invention, represent one of the most contentious categories in all of science. The scientific establishment's response to such discoveries has historically fallen into 2 camps. The first is skeptical investigation, careful re-examination of the dating, the context, and the object itself, which often reveals a mundane explanation. The second, rarer response is acknowledgement, a formal revision of the assumed timeline in light of evidence that cannot be explained away. Both responses have legitimate roles. The history of archaeology includes many cases where enthusiastic amateur discoveries of supposedly ancient anomalies turned out to be forgeries, misidentified natural formations, or artifacts simply displaced from their original layer by post-depositional disturbance. Critical scrutiny of extraordinary claims is not closed-mindedness. It is scientific responsibility, but it must be applied consistently. The same rigorous scrutiny applied to anomalous claims must also be applied to the mainstream assumptions those claims challenge. And sometimes, when the evidence is examined honestly, the mainstream assumption is the one that breaks. The significance of genuine out-of-place artifacts goes beyond the objects themselves. Each one represents a data point in a larger argument about ancient human capability, about what our ancestors understood, what they could engineer, and how much of that knowledge has been lost. The ancient world was not populated by primitive minds in primitive bodies. The brains that looked up at the night sky 40,000 years ago were neurologically identical to ours. Given sufficient time and motivation, they could have discovered and lost almost anything we know today. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades, and patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Baigong Pipes, ancient iron pipes in a Chinese mountain that predate China, is more extensive more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Baigong Pipes are located near Mount Baigong on the shores of Toson Lake in Qinghai Province, in a remote area of northwestern China at an elevation of approximately 3,000 meters. The site features 3 triangular cave openings in the mountain face, and iron pipe-like structures of various diameters are visible running from the cave interiors and the surrounding ground surface into and alongside the lake. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the pipes vary dramatically in diameter, from structures described as toothpick thin to approximately 40 centimeters across. Some run parallel to the rock surface, some penetrate into the mountain, and some run into Toson Lake itself. Iron pipe-like structures have also been reported on the lake bed and on a nearby island in the lake, suggesting the formation is extensive across the landscape. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The Qinghai Times first reported the pipes in 2002, describing them in terms that emphasized their anomalous character and referencing local UFO legend. The story was widely republished internationally in the alternative and mainstream press. A research team from the Geology and Mineral Resources Research Institute of the Chinese Academy of Geological Sciences visited the site and collected samples for analysis. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, chemical analysis of the pipe material found iron content of approximately 8%, with the remainder composed primarily of silicon dioxide, silica, and calcium oxide. The relatively low iron content is inconsistent with smelted iron artifacts, which typically contain 90% or more iron, but consistent with iron-rich mineral deposits formed by geological processes. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Yang Jai, a researcher with the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, proposed that the pipes were formed by a process in which iron-rich groundwater percolated through sediment containing plant roots or tree trunks, depositing iron oxides around the organic matter. As the organic material decayed, hollow iron-rich tubes, pseudomorphs, were left behind, mimicking the shape of the original plant material. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. A UFO tourism museum was opened near the site in 2003, capitalizing on the international attention generated by the Qinghai Times story. The region is geologically active, situated on the Tibetan Plateau, and is subject to ongoing geological research. No systematic archaeological excavation of the area surrounding the pipes has identified any associated human habitation, tools, ceramics, or artifacts of any period. Taken together, These facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological errors. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Baigong Pipes, ancient iron pipes in a Chinese mountain that predate China. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that natural pseudomorph formation, iron-rich groundwater deposited iron oxides around the roots, branches, or trunks of ancient trees or shrubs, creating hollow iron-rich tubes that replicate the shape of the original organic material. As the organic matter decayed, the mineral tubes remained. This process, documented in other geological contexts worldwide, fully accounts for the variable diameters, the pipe-like form, and the low iron content of the material, which matches mineral deposition rather than smelting. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that ancient smelting or hydraulic infrastructure from an unknown early Chinese metallurgical or engineering culture. A fringe hypothesis that the pipes are remnants of a civilization predating known Chinese history that use the site for water management or industrial purposes. No associated artifacts, settlement remains, slag heaps, or any other evidence of industrial activity has been found in the area. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that extraterrestrial construction, local legend, and the initial press coverage attributed the pipes to alien visitors, citing the absence of any known human civilization in the remote area and the apparent precision of the pipe forms. No physical evidence supports this interpretation, and the chemical composition of the pipes is consistent with natural mineral formation rather than engineered metal. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Baigong Pipes, ancient iron pipes in a Chinese mountain that predate China, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the chemical composition of the Baigong pipe material, 8% iron with the remainder silica and calcium oxide, is inconsistent with any smelting process and consistent with iron-rich mineral deposition around organic matter. Iron pseudomorphs formed around plant material have been documented at other geological sites worldwide, and the resulting structures closely resemble the Baigong pipes in both form and chemical composition. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented similar iron-rich tube formations formed around petrified plant material are known from other sedimentary geological contexts globally, providing direct precedent for the natural formation hypothesis. The geological setting of the Qinghai region, with iron-rich groundwater, ancient lake sediments, and a long history of plant growth, provides all the required conditions for pseudomorph tube formation. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed no excavation of the Baigong site has identified any associated human artifacts, tools, structural remains, or evidence of industrial activity. The complete absence of archaeological context, the debris, waste material, and infrastructure that any ironworking or hydraulic engineering operation would produce is strong negative evidence against any artificial construction hypothesis, ancient or otherwise. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Baigong pipes, ancient iron pipes in a Chinese mountain that predate China. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. No peer-reviewed geological or archaeological study has concluded that the Baigong pipes are artificial structures. Chinese geologists have accepted the natural pseudomorph explanation as consistent with the chemical evidence and the regional geology. The site has become a significant tourist attraction, with the UFO Museum opened in 2003 drawing visitors interested in extraterrestrial explanations. The area's geological activity makes it scientifically interesting independent of the pipe controversy, and ongoing research into Tibetan plateau geology may eventually provide additional context for the formation processes that created the structures. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Baigong Pipes, ancient iron pipes in a Chinese mountain that predate China from the historical record. Through physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Baigong Pipes ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.